Dave here and Darren from the Great White North over there. Anyways, have we got a show for you today? We're going to be talking Vikings versus Packers. Yes, it's Packers week. We all love Packers week, and we all love a Vikings victory, especially afterwards when you work with that obnoxious Packers fan and that you want to see him suffer the rest of the week. We'll get into that. We'll get into certain things like, what do we do with the Packers suddenly having a decent defense? What does our offense do, right? Do they stay aggressive, go downfield, or do they actually run the ball? Those questions and more will be asked on Good Morning Gallahorns, Two Old Bloggers, starting next. Everybody, it's Dave again, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Darren Campbell. Darren started writing almost 2 decades ago. You know him from Grant's Tomb and Kick-Ass blog. I started writing probably about the same time, maybe a little bit earlier, and you know me from various spots around the web, including the Daily Norseman, our partner. Today we're discussing the fact that it is Packers week. How you doing, Darren?
Doing great, Dave. How about that win last Sunday?
Hey, that was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, like the most complete Vikings game of the year, I think. I wonder where that team is every Sunday. But hey, go on the road, underdog, playing a team with a winning record that was fighting to keep hold of first place. We go down there and we hold one of the best young quarterbacks in the game, 20 points. Not bad at all. It was probably my favorite Vikings victory of the year. There's only been 4 of them so far. So
over the Seattle one, I enjoyed the Seattle one too.
Yeah, I guess that seems like it was like a year ago that happened. So,
it does seem that long
ago.
But they stayed aggressive. There's a little bit of
like a recency bias.
Mm-hmm. And they stayed aggressive, and there was a noticeable change in play calling, especially towards the end of the first half.
Yeah,
which was good.
We did, yeah.
But
Yes,
now,
we'd hope to. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later.
uh now we need to look at this game against our dreaded cross-border rivals, right? The one and only Green Bay Packers. And did I load that one screen? Here we go. Boom. Vikings versus Packers. All right. We've been going at it for years, ever since the Vikings were formed back in 1961. Most of the time, it's relatively dead even. They've had good times, and we've had really good times. But recently, they've seemed to have dominated this matchup. However, with Matt LeFleur, the head coach, we have Mike Zimmer, and his team has beaten them once. It was last year up in Lambeau in 40-mile-an-hour winds when we had to keep the game on the ground. Let's take a look at this game so far. We normally start out with our stats, so let's do that again.
Here they come.
Let's first look at the injury report. Here we go. As of Friday, from both their websites, here's the guys that are out, right? Wyatt Davis is supposedly out with an ankle. He supposedly messed it up sometime during the week. He was limited on Friday, and then they ruled him out.
Yeah, I think he showed up on the injury report first on Thursday with an ankle injury, and he's out, and that's not really a big deal because he's not been playing other than some special team snaps.
Yeah.
Rashad Breeland's a little bit more of he's a question mark. That's a little bit more of an issue, or maybe not, depending on because if Breeland can't play, then that means if Breeland can't play, we're assuming that Patrick Peterson will play, although they haven't announced that yet. I don't think he's practiced and everything. He's eligible to come back. But if Breeland can't play, that means that Cameron Dantzler, who probably would go to standing on the sidelines if Breeland and Peterson are both in, because the starting three have been at the start of the year were Peterson, Breeland, and Mac Alexander. So I think that a Breeland-Dantzler switch would be favorable for the Vikings.
It very well could. And but the Breeland thing sort of feels like the Xavier Rhodes thing, where, he gets hurt every other drive and then comes back in, and then during the week they list him as hurt all week long. Whether he's going to be there, I don't know. And the only one left on the COVID list until we hit tomorrow morning is Josh Metellus. Not that that's
who is not a big loss, but he is a key special teams guy on the coverage units, and he has, he's one of those guys that shows up making some tackles at times. So I think while it's not a huge loss, I would prefer if Metellus was covering punts and kickoffs like he's been doing all year, and I think he's done a pretty good job of that. I think he even recovered a fumble or maybe I'm thinking last year, but he's on a punt, but he's a core special teams guy, and again, not a guy who plays starting on the defensive side of things. Not a huge loss, but he won't be there. Somebody else will have to
step up.
Take a step up, but could be Chaz Surratt, somebody like that, who. With Barr coming back, probably normally lately he's been not getting to dress, but with Metellus out, I don't know. They probably bring up somebody like Miles Dorn or something like that for Metellus to get an extra safety in there. We'll see.
And then we have on the Green Bay side, David Bakhtiari's out, which is to me a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Putting pressure on Aaron Rodgers a little easier.
Yeah, and he's been out all year. He has yet to play this season. He's getting close to coming back, but it's not going to be this Sunday. And yes, that is good news for the Vikings. Although again, the Packers have been patching together an offensive line. They've had different kind of injuries. I think they've got Elgin Jenkins has been playing for Bakhtiari at left tackle, and he's normally a guard for them. and he's, by all what I've read, he's done a pretty good job, and the whole line has done a pretty good job this year, despite having some rookies and lost some guys to free agency, and Bakhtiari has not played the whole year. Still, I think Bakhtiari not playing is a plus for the Vikings.
Now the big
Alan
one,
Lazard, the other guy, is
he's a backup wide receiver.
He's a backup wide receiver, big guy. Rodgers likes him, but I think he has 9 catches this year.
Yeah.
I think I cut you off, Dave, but I think I know where you're going.
Malik Taylor is the number 1 kick returner on a very poorly rated special teams.
Very poor, and with the way Greg Joseph's been nailing his kickoffs all year, it's a lot of games. There's not even a kickoff that's returned by the Vikings opponents, because he usually kicks them deep out of the end zone. So I don't know how much of a factor Taylor would be, even if he was playing. The big one there is the question mark is Rashawn Gary. He's their leading sack guy, and if he is
hyperextended elbow from last week.
Yeah, so from last week there was some questions whether he'd be able to play at all, but he did practice somewhat, and as I say, he's questionable. It seems that when guys are, which is questionable, is like a 50-50 flip of the coin, but it seems a lot of the times those guys end up at least trying to play. They may not finish the game, but they usually do.
Well, they may be hampered a little bit. And with his elbow, if he's going to play with it, he's going to have a brace on it. So he's not going to be as flexible as normal. And as an outside linebacker / defensive end, Kingsley, Kiki is listed as defensive end. I don't know why they play a 3-5 as their base. But when they're limited, that puts the advantage to the guy on the opposite side, if he can take advantage of it.
Yes, that's a great point, Dave, because like you say, if Gary is unable to use that, I don't know if it's his right or left elbow, but if he's not able to use that on kind of bull rushes
he's a bull rush guy.
Chop or to chop down and get, disengage with an offensive tackle,
or whatever,
hand fighting, that sort of thing. And also on the tackling side of stuff, if that hampers him in tackling, he can't bring down guys because it's painful to do so. Then that's an advantage for the Viking offensive player, whoever he's either trying to sack or trying to tackle. And Gary is a key piece of that defense.
I do want to acknowledge who's in the house tonight. We have Mary, Wayne, Stephen from Australia, Raymond's here, Daniel's back, and all of you guys, we're glad you are here, and we're going to continue with some of these outstanding stats before we dive into some of the more controversial topics.
Thanks everybody for tuning in too. Appreciate it.
All right. Right now, here's how our offense ranks versus their defense. And we'll get more into their defense. Like I said in the beginning, it's surprisingly good. If you look at the PFF ranks, they're pretty close.
Yeah.
They
are very close.
And the same goes with Football Outsiders. DVOA is close. So
very close. You're looking at it's kind of the same as last week, Dave, in that both teams have our strength is throwing the ball and defending against the pass. The weaknesses are running the ball, according to like the advanced stats and the counting stats. The weaknesses are Vikings running the ball and the Packers defending the run. One thing that's been the Packers have really feasted this season on turnovers. I think they've got 17 as a defense. That's about, I think that's 16. That's 3 or 4 more than the Vikings. They've only had 2 games where they haven't had a turnover, created a turnover. That's really helped them. You can see that they're sacking quarterbacks almost as prolifically as the Vikings are, 24. We're at 29, I believe, at this point.
We'll flip over and we'll look. There we go.
And
yes, we are tied for first with 29. And and we're tied for
The one
14th,
thing
12 turnovers.
if one thing I wanted to mention about when we had the Vikings offense versus the Packers defense is that while the Packers defense is not ranked great by Football Outsiders or by Elias on the rushing, on how they defend the rushing, the past 3 games the Packers have not given up any more than 77 yards rushing total in the game. In the last 3.
Good.
Very good. Keeping in mind that 2 of those games was against Kansas City, who again Andy Reid only runs the ball when he's bored with passing it, and Seattle has got absolutely nobody running right now. They got Alex Collins, who's pretty average young guy. Chris Carson isn't playing right now, so they weren't really facing 2 high-powered rushing attacks the past 2 weeks. Thought I'd throw that out there.
It's good to know. Flipping the sides, when we look at the Vikings defense versus the Packers offense, again, the stats are showing us this is a relatively even matchup.
Again, the advanced stats guys, Football Outsiders and PFF both like the Vikings defense and the Packers offense quite a bit more than I think those of us who watch the Vikings and the Packers closely probably would raise our eyebrows on these rankings by the analytics folks, thinking that they're not they're overvaluing their their abilities, I think.
But are they comparing that to the rest of the league? Especially when we're talking ranks, right? If they're saying the Vikings is the 6th ranked defense, is it? Are all the other defenses not? I mean, we see the defense and we nitpick it and we say, hey, Breland could have done better here.
Whoever, you say that a lot,
right? We could have done this. We could have done that. Are all the other teams, minus the 5 above it, that much worse?
I don't know. I watch like.
I don't think there's a grabber yet.
Not yet. No, not yet. Dave is though.
I am. Yes.
I think that I watch, and I'm sure you do, Dave. I watch a number of football games throughout the week because I've got Game Pass, so I can watch any game I want, and I don't watch obviously a lot of them are playing at the same time, so I can't watch every game, the whole thing, but I can watch condensed afterwards. I see a lot of defenses and offense. I shouldn't say a lot, but I feel like I could count on both of my hands some offenses and defense that I think are better than what the Vikings put out there on a week-to-week basis. So I don't think it's a case of the whole league is playing it on that much worse. But that's the eye test of my eyes, and I don't know nothing. So I'm just a fan, and a very overly critical fan of the Vikings too, I'll admit. So I think I view their warts and maybe focus on their warts maybe a little bit too much sometimes. But hey, that's the way I am.
Now, if you look at the raw stats, the Elias stats, Vikings defense doesn't look all that good. Heck, the Packers defense doesn't look great. The only portion where we absolutely rock is in sacks and turnovers, taking away the ball.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just the points that the Vikings have given up each game and the points that the Packers have scored each game, the Packers offense seems kind of like even with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback and Devontae Adams who's probably the best wide receiver in the game, if not the best, he's definitely in the top 3 or 4. You got Aaron Jones, who I think is an excellent running back, and yet they, stats-wise, like counting stats, they're a pretty run-of-the-mill offense this year, which is weird to see when you consider the 3 guys that I just mentioned.
Right.
And on the Viking side of things, they're kind of a run-of-the-mill defense, and with some significant weaknesses, tackling. stopping the run,
Yes. But they have been lucky getting
giving up
turnovers at
points.
certain times and forcing turnovers. Eric Kendricks is a big part of that. Um, so
Yeah, I just and it's weird to see that the Vikings are the tie, are first in the league in sacks, and yet defensively not middle of the pack, and not an elite or even a very good unit. Usually, if you're leading the league in sacks, your defense is pretty stout, and the Vikings defense has been stout at times in most games this year, but not all the way through. Last week was a rare exception, and we were happy to see that.
mhm. All right, let's move on to our next subject. You wanted to talk.
Wang is telling me not to hold back and that the Vikings defense sucks. I won't go as far as to say they suck, but they do suck at some inopportune times. I
Oh,
will
yes, they do.
admit that.
All right. You wanted to talk about the job defensive coordinator Joe Barry has done. And you wanted two players featured. They're down there below. I also have the PFF scores and setup of that. It's probably too small for people to see, and it's obviously hidden by the logo on the bottom. I can move that real quick. Boom.
Those are some small stats.
Yeah, they're small, but you can see the colors, right? You want green and blue, and they have some green and blue, but they also have some oranges in there.
The the reason I wanted to talk about Barry is because I never heard of the guy until he got the defensive coordinator job with that team from Wisconsin. He got Matt LeFleur had replaced Mike Pettin, who had overseen some iffy and last year downright weak defenses for the Packers, which as a Vikings fan we always like to see that. But Barry's done a heck of a job with this defense. It didn't look good the first game of the season. They got totally smoked by the Saints, 38-3. I think a lot of Packers fans were thinking, "Oh, what have we done here?" Barry's a coach. He's a linebackers coach. He's got a big pedigree in coaching the linebackers. The Packers run a 3-4, of course, and they have really stepped things up the past 3-4 games. They won the Arizona win, although everybody was talking about, or I shouldn't say everybody, but it seemed to me a lot of the focus was on how Rodgers was able to, and Matt LeFleur were able to come up with a game plan and execute it against the Cardinals without any wide receivers at all to throw to. But really, I felt that the MVP of that game was the Packers defense, because the first half, in particular, they totally shut down the Cardinals and Kyler Murray in a way that we hadn't seen all year. The second half, the Cardinals got it going a bit, but it was a bit too late. And then the Chiefs, Mahomes has struggled at times this year, but to go on the road when you've got Jordan Love sucking hard in his first start and giving you no help at all, they played a tremendous game there, giving up only 14 points, no matter how much Mahomes is struggling. And then last week, I know that Seattle doesn't have any kind of a running game, and they're not a great team this year. But anytime you can shut out a team quarterbacked by Russell Wilson, you've done a great job. And Barry is doing a heck of a job right now. And it's Dave, if you look, and he's done it without Jair Alexander, who's a great corner and the best corner that the Packers have, and Zadarius Smith basically has played only a handful of snaps the whole year. He's been out. Those really would be what I would consider the two best players on the Packers defense, and they haven't played in a long, long time. And yet this defense, the sum is greater than the individual parts. They're getting good work out of like Rashawn Gary, Devondre Campbell, great last name, but I hate the team he plays for, but he's really been a huge part of their defense this year. Dean Lowry pictured in there. He's another guy, inside guy, but he's a fellow that can really create a lot of pressure up the middle from his inside, from the inside kind of stuff. They got two very good safeties, Savage and Amos. it's a defense with not a lot of what we would consider star power. Like most, I think, a lot of NFL fans know who Eric Kendricks is, who Anthony Barr is. They know who Harrison Smith is. They know who Daniil Hunter is. But they probably couldn't name a lot of the guys on the Packers defense right now. But yet the Packers defense is playing as well as any defense outside of probably the Patriots in the NFL right now. And this is a huge, huge challenge for the Vikings offense, which they need to be able to. They need to be able to not just. They've got to be able to
spit it out.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to say they got to be able to score some points. Of course, they got to score some points, but they need to score more than what they had been doing at home. That they had 7 points against the Browns, 19 points against the Lions, and then 16 against the Cowboys. And I don't think any of those defenses at those junctures are playing as well as the Packers are now. For whatever reason, the Vikings have not been a very good offense at home this year, except for the Seattle game. But that's kind of looked like an outlier. So I'm really concerned about the ability of the Vikings offense to generate enough positive gains on first and second down and third to keep the chains moving, to move the ball down the field, and to score enough points to win this game for us, considering the way I need some bourbon to warm up, Joseph says. Yeah, it is cold here today. Like minus 20 Celsius, and the wind chill is something else. But the Packers defense, we're not used to being, the past couple of years, we're not used to being concerned about them as we usually are used to them being the weak link of this team. This year, they're actually, so far, they're the strength of the team. And that is not something that you want to see, because at any time, Aaron Rodgers can have one of those Aaron Rodgers types games. And if you can't keep up with them scoring-wise, it's going to be a long day for you.
Now, you had mentioned
Joe Barry's got to be, we got to tip the hat to Joe Barry for the job that he's done, however the hell he's done it this year, to get the Packers defense where it is right now.
Oh, he has. And it's surprising to me. But yes, but let's talk about why are the Vikings playing better on the road than they are at home this season?
Wow, Dave, that's a great question, and I don't have a great answer for it. Could it be that I never buy this argument, but people always say, well, at home, teams on a show, and they don't play solidly and they take too many chances. It seems to me the Vikings at home do the opposite. They aren't trying to put on a show. They're trying to be extra careful so the boo birds don't come out and shit on them too much. And then they run a whole bunch of bogus plays that have no hope of succeeding.
Yeah,
and it's not like you got to worry about
2 yards to CJ Ham. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not like you've got there can't be any difference in how they're approaching their play calling, there's different teams here, so of course you've got to attack them different ways. You're going to have slightly different game plans for each defense you're going on. So it seems to me it's just an anomaly. You don't have to worry about crowd noise. You're playing at home. Although in this game, crowd noise might actually be a factor, because it's probably going to be like 60% Vikings fans and 40% Packers fans kind of thing.
Well,
so
it's like Ryan from Climbing the Pocket, our network, who's on Wednesdays. He normally he sells his Packer tickets, because that pays selling his home Packers tickets pays for like 80% of all his season tickets. And I know a lot of other season ticket holders that have said the same thing. And I sell that one. I don't like it, but I sell that one because then it lowers my costs and I get all the rest of the games.
Yeah,
and
it's a business decision.
Unfortunately, we hear that stupid saying that starts with a go and ends with a go.
Yeah.
It drives us all bananas. No. And for those that are asking, Darren and I talked about it before the show. Yes, I am drinking bourbon right now. I am saving. I got about a 6-pack, 6 or 7 beers left. I'm saving that for tomorrow during the game. But
I'm just going with H2O.
All right, we've gone over that. Let's click over to their offense. You wanted to talk about their bowling ball of a running back, Mr. A.J. Dillon.
Yes. 6 feet, 250 pounds. Last year, he looked, I remember when the Packers made this selection, and I think I was watching actually your draft show at the time where you had a whole bunch of people on there, and
that was
and
great.
You
I can't
guys,
wait till next year.
You guys did some yeoman's work that 2 years ago, Dave. You're on you did the first day, the second day, and the third day.
We did it this year too.
I remember. Yeah, but I remember when everybody that was on that show was like loving the fact that the Packers took a running back
Right.
and a 250-pound running back when they needed wide receivers. Obviously, everybody was like, "That is ridiculous! What is Gutekunst doing? Like, brutal pick." And last year in his rookie season, it did look very bad because Dillon didn't play much. They had Jamal Williams along with Aaron Jones. And when he did play, he wasn't particularly effective. He kind of dropped. He had fumbling issues. But this year, he's delivering on that promise that the Packers saw when they drafted him in the second round. And he's looked like the guy that he was at Boston College, which is a dude that's going to break a ton of tackles, is a better receiver out of the backfield than you think, and is a huge load when he gets, get head of steam going. And
well, when you think 250 pounds, that's roughly a little bit bigger than our linebackers right now because we go with smaller linebackers. That's a mass that's moving, and these guys know how to pump their legs. They know how to drive. They've been doing it their entire lives, right? And they live for it, and that will be something that we're going to have to be careful of because I suspect that they will use a lot. We looked at the stats, right? Vikings aren't very good against the run. So if you're not very good against the run, what do? You run the football. And
even if they aren't good against the run, Dave, and it wasn't an issue last week. But we know that we've talked about it just about on every show. Why the Vikings have trouble tackling, we don't know, but they miss a lot of tackles. They get first contact, but don't take the ball carrier down on first contact. They don't wrap up. They get the ball carrier often gets 2, 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 extra yards after first contact, and A.J. Dillon is one of those guys that's going to has at his size with and he ain't slow, so he's got the ability to do that to you again if you've got a poor tackling team, even if you've got a very good tackling team. So really, but if the Vikings have to, not just the first guy who contacts him, but we need 3, 4, 5 defenders when he gets the ball, rallying to team tackling, rallying to the ball. Like Joseph was talking about, get him low. Yeah, and get him low and get him high. Not just depend on one guy or two guys to take him down, because that's in other games that lately, with Dillon getting a bit more work, he had a very good game against the Cardinals. That was kind of I'd say it was a bit of a coming out party for him, but he broke, I lost count of how many tackles he broke against the Cardinals in that game. He was more effective than actually Aaron Jones. It was a bigger part of the running game than Aaron Jones was. And Aaron Jones is usually a huge pain in the ass for the Vikings. I hate facing that guy. Yeah. But Dillon is, in last week, same thing, breaking tackles against the Seahawks. It's, if the Vikings can not consistently prevent him from getting 5, 6 yards of carry, even 4, then it's going to be so much easier for Aaron Rodgers to do what he does, facing 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, and then that just gives him a whole bunch of options. He can go deep or do the other thing that they are really good at is they love those wide receiver screens, throwing quick out to the line of scrimmage, to the tight end, to the running back, a couple of blockers in front of them. All of a sudden, boom, they've got 7 or 8 yards out of a play that looks like nothing. And Rodgers gets rid of the ball so quickly with kind of a sidearm kind of throw. You can't bat the ball down, and he gets it out and to the receivers before the defensive line has even really rushed or even knows what's going on, and they can't react in time to beat the blocking that's been set up in front of them. So the Packers' short passing game, wide receiver, running back, tight end screens that they run are going to be even harder to stop if we can't stop A.J. Dillon and prevent him from getting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yards per carry, like we've seen the Vikings defense give up to a lot of other receivers, a lot of other running backs this year. Some good, some not so good.
And the one thing we've got to worry about, Dillon is known always, and any good back does this, but he's known to fall forward. If you're tackling him and he falls forward, that's an extra 2 yards, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to be easily stood up. His center of gravity and everything is too low. So you've got to, like we said before, team tackle this dude.
And really, if the Vikings are, another thing they've struggled with is really, I find, like meeting the running back at the line of scrimmage or a bit before, like getting that penetration. Like it seems like a lot of times Kendricks, Barr, whoever the linebackers are, defensive tackles, defensive ends too, they're meeting the running back after he's already got a little bit of head of steam, 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then it's almost too late to really stop them from getting the 5 and 6 yard gains that you're trying to prevent on running downs. And not to mention that the other the offensive team we're facing has usually got blockers pulling and out into space that you're also trying to get around and find the running back.
And trying to get to that second level to get their hats on them.
Yeah. You won't be able to, the defenders won't have a hard time finding Dillon like last year with Austin Eckler or Aaron Jones because he's so big, but you just don't want that big guy getting the legs going with a good head of steam because that's really going to make for an unpleasant collision for our defenders, especially our safeties and our defensive backs, and who I don't think will want anything to do with A.J. Dillon with a good head of steam going on his way.
Yep. All right. Next on your list, we were talking about how the defense can stop. We just did that. The only other word we've got out today is Willekes was not upgraded to the active squad this morning, but that does not mean he won't be tomorrow. He's back on the practice squad, and as we know, we can activate somebody twice off the practice squad before they're permanently on the team. There was some disappointment chatter today because Willekes played well. We would like to see that, but we'll have to wait till tomorrow to find that out. We
do know that he's off the COVID list.
He is off the COVID list. Yeah. And it may be that they're trying to see his Willekes had it, right? If I remember correctly.
He did have it. He did have it as far as I know, and so maybe depending on the severity.
He wasn't part of the false positives. And so he may have lost weight, and they may be, waiting for him to build up strength. It's just like, who are we playing at center tomorrow? Is it Bradbury? or is it the other dude?
Mason Cole, yes.
Mason Cole. And is Mason Cole, if it is Bradbury, is Mason Cole moving over and playing right guard? These are questions we won't find out because Zimmer already said he's not going to tell anybody until tomorrow. So,
yeah, there was Yeah, there'd been I'd heard some indications earlier in the week that the Vikings weren't guaranteeing that Bradbury was going to get his starting job back,
Right.
and then I thought
They
I
were
read
splitting
else
time
somewhere
this week.
else, and then I thought I read somewhere else where later in the week where there's an indication that it looked like Bradbury actually would be. It was looking that I don't know if they're reading the tea leaves or what they were doing, but it was looking like that one report I read. It was the indications were that Bradbury was looking like he was going to get his starting position back, which I think would be a mistake. But
I think the reason, one of the things
well,
I heard is Bradbury is better at calling coverage, blocking assignments.
well, it's great for him to call it. I like when he called it. He'd actually block the guys for a change.
Yeah, there's the mic. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then I'm going to be fucking forklifted up and put in Cousin's lap.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
But anyways, now we're talking about this defense. How do we defeat this defense? Where do we need to go?
Well, one thing that has to happen is, if you might remember, last year in Lambeau, and actually even in the game. First off, Dalvin Cook. It'd be nice if he had if we had a successful day rushing the ball. I think we say that every week, but this week it seems a little bit more important because the Packers have got a pretty deep secondary, and it's a pretty good secondary even without Jair Alexander playing. They've still been able to defend the pass very effectively and the run very effectively lately too. But I don't think, again, they've faced a running back like Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin has had some big games against the Packers in the past. Last year, the Vikings ran very effectively in both of their games against the Packers, but unfortunately in the season opener, the score got away from us so quickly that they couldn't utilize Cook in the second half at all because they were just playing catch up. And all Viking fans who watched the game last year know how good Cook was in that game. And they also know how well the offensive line played in that game because there were some massive holes for Dalvin to run through in that
Drive
game.
a truck through.
The likes of which we have rarely seen in recent memory. So obviously, if we can get the running game to be pretty effective, that is going to be a huge help to the offense because the Packers get after the quarterback pretty good, even without Zadarius Smith playing this year. And so Cook's got to be a big part of this game. He's got to be successful running early and often. My question is that for Dalvin Cook, it's not all on him. I think if you give him a crease, it doesn't have to be a big hole, he's going to find that crease and he's going to get some positive yards. But I do have concerns about whether if it's Bradbury is back in there and you got Udo in Cleveland flanking him. Udo's taken a ton of penalties and his grades aren't very good when you look at Pro Football Focus. I think Cleveland's been a disappointment to me. I think he's been struggling and his grades aren't very good. The interior, Darren and Brian O'Neill seem to be doing fine. But those three guys are the really weak links. And if we can't run between the tackles, I don't think we're going to be very effective pitching and going out wide too. Like you've got to be able to have that variety in the run game. And the way the Packers defense has been playing lately and the fact that our two guards and our center, if it's Bradbury, have really struggled run blocking and pass blocking too, it just seems like that's my concern with getting the running game
just
going.
to let you know, since we're into stats, I was looking at Sharp football stats, and Warren Sharp breaks down running against the defense in which direction. He also breaks down offenses, what's best. Against the Packers defense, it is best to run to the left side. That would be over Darren. outside, they give up 5.7 yards per carry, that's not good. It's good for the offense, but it's not good for the defense. It goes down, tackle to guard on the left side is 4.9. And then it gets really, really stingy in the middle. Mm-hmm. And it stays that way. And it's even worse when people run to the right on them, off of O'Neill's side. So it should be interesting to see Klint and whoever's helping him, how they call that to the game. And Darren's chuckling because yes, I can, Wayne. I could open holes, guaranteed. Even at my old age, maybe once, but that would be it. But it was interesting to hear that it was on a podcast between Matthew Collar and Courtney Cronin that they had
Purple Insider, they call it.
Yep, on Purple Insider, Matthew's podcast. They were talking about how the play calling in the first half, especially in the first half of last week, changed, and that Klint Kubiak is getting help. They knew he was getting help on the scripted plays, right, that have all been so good, all up until last week, which was the first time we didn't score in our opening drive. But how we basically stayed. The aggressive deal was directed by Zimmer, but he had some help calling plays at the end of that first half. And Courtney and Matthew both asked leading questions to try to get it out. Zimmer didn't say anything. Klint didn't say anything. But they go, we know you're getting help, and we know who it is. Why won't you say it? So hopefully, whoever that somebody is, and there should be somebody, I'm betting it's our quarterback's coach, they should, hopefully this helps in this game as well, is what I'm hoping for. There's a lot of hope in there. Probably a half dozen times. It's I want them to do that. Klint's obviously a rookie at calling plays. There's other people on that staff that have called plays before. Let them assist him like he did last week, and let's turn this into a positive. That's what I'm saying.
And yes, if I don't know how it works on most teams, but they always say two heads are better than one, and I certainly, especially with Klint Kubiak being first-time offensive coordinator, I would hope that he's getting help, suggestions from the offensive staff on what to call, even during the games. I certainly, even if I was an experienced coordinator, I would appreciate that.
You'd want other people chirping and saying, "Hey,
this
may work."
You want some opinions. You want some opinions down there in that game, and now it has to happen quick, and it doesn't mean you're going to accept them. But if somebody else can give me an idea of a play that they think is going to work because they've seen something that I haven't seen, because I'm worried, I'm so concerned about calling the next play and the play after that, that could be a good thing. And it seemed to the second half, the Vikings offense did some really good things, and the other part of being successful against the Packers defense, I don't know if it's going to work, but there's about 4 plays in that Vikings Chargers game offensively for us that really stick out. It was a 3rd and 15. Cousins completed an 18-yard pass to Jefferson. There was a 2nd and 20 that 3rd and 15, the ball was thrown past the sticks. It wasn't a case of Jefferson caught it and then got an extra 3 or 4 yards. The 2nd and 20, now, yes, that one was thrown probably around the 15, 16 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And then Jefferson did the hero thing, and he willed himself.
Carried that one over. Yeah.
Carried, but still, it was 2nd down. A 16-yard pass close to the sticks. There was a 3rd and the 3rd and 20 late in the game, the dagger drive, again, thrown about 18 yards, not past the sticks, but close enough that Thielen caught it, gave us a chance to go for it in 4th and 2. And then there was the 3rd and 6 earlier in that drive where Cousins, instead of looking for something short, they took a shot, made a throw down the right sideline, trusted Jefferson, big gainer, great catch by Jefferson. Pretty good throw by Cousins, but a greater catch by Jefferson. And we get a big first down on a 3rd and 6 instead of punting it to the Chargers. And those were aggressive type of calls, like the graphic is showing up there.
Yep.
And those are the kind of down and distance situations where we haven't been used to seeing the Vikings take those chances, particularly Cousins. Take those chances, be aggressive, instead of normally when we're in 2nd and 20 or 3rd and 15 or 3rd and longer, it's automatic. Just drop it to CJ Ham or Dalvin Cook. Let's
behind
hope
the line
break
of
20
scrimmage,
tackles.
maybe 2 yards.
Let's hope they break 20. Let's hope they break 20 tackles, and maybe we get a first down. But at least we won't get an interception, or have an incompletion, Instead of trying to get the first down and keep the drive going, we tend to play it safe so much in those situations. Against the Packers, we're going to be faced with more of those down and distance situations. Hopefully not too many of them, but they are going to happen. And when they do, we need to try plays to get first downs instead of playing it safe. And one of the things that was mentioned in that podcast that with Courtney and Matt Collar that you sent to me and I listened to it and it was very interesting was earlier in that show they were talking about how they felt that they're kind of placing the blame, and they felt the wide receivers were placing the blame on a lot of these wimpy, non-aggressive calls on Cousins, that he's trying to be too perfect, trying to avoid making mistakes, and so he's going short instead of taking chances. And in the Chargers game, for one game at least, we saw a different kind of Vikings offense and a different kind of Kirk Cousins. And we need to take chances against the Packers.
We need to do that the rest of the season.
Yes, but particularly in this, we'll just start with this
tomorrow's game. Yes. Hey, want to thank Anthony for joining us.
Guys.
Tim and GMAC, you are here. Anthony asks, with Ole Udo being a holding machine, why aren't we starting Wyatt Davis? From everything I'm hearing, reading, and talking behind the scenes, Wyatt Davis just isn't getting it yet. He is not gotten there in practice. He's not getting there in games. He has not stepped up to the level where he is better than Ole Udo. And that's why he's not seeing the field. It's as simple as that. It's a big jump when you go from college to professional football. And it takes a lot. Everything speeds up. Plays are more complicated. It's not simple rules that if the guy is on my hat, it's this. If he's on my shoulder, it's this. If he's on this shoulder, it's that. It's not those simple rules anymore. And from what I'm hearing from sources that report on the team and sources inside the house, he's not ready yet. Doesn't mean he won't be next year, but he's not ready this year so far. That's why.
And probably even more what's telling about the fact that he's not ready is that even when they've had the opportunity, the Vikings lately, to bring in an extra blocker on those heavy packages, or the time when Udo went down just for that one play, they've actually been bringing in Blake Brandel as the other offensive lineman and as the replacement for Ole Udo. 2 or 3 games ago. They haven't been bringing in Wyatt Davis for those types of plays. So that's another indication that the coaching staff does not trust Wyatt Davis at all at this point.
Plumbo, yes, we talked about A.J. Dillon and how he's a bowling ball and will have to team tackle. Yes. GMAC, I've also often wondered, is it an Ohio State team? Does Ohio State just produce excellent college football records, and then most of them don't turn out in the pros? We'll find out. Hopefully they have a quarterback that won't in Chicago.
Yeah, I guess that's a bit of the question for us because, of course, we had the Pat Elflein experience that didn't go so well, and then there was another center that came out of Billy Price, I think it was, from Ohio State, was highly regarded. Got picked by the Bengals, and I think he's moved on, and he hasn't really panned out either. So there's a few examples of Buckeye offensive linemen who had great college careers, but yeah,
Yeah.
in the pros, it's been a tougher sled for them. We're hoping that doesn't happen with Wyatt Davis because, again, an All-American, and had a lot of had and still do have high hopes for him when with the Vikings picking him in the third round, and considering we didn't have a whole lot of great prospects lined up ahead of him prior to this season starting. I don't think any of us saw Oli Udoh getting switched to right guard and becoming one of the starters there, but here he is, getting
And
5
Udo
holding
has
penalties a
some
game
talent.
while he's at it.
He has some flaws
Well,
that need resolved. The holding part of it, and it may have been coached that way initially, needs to be coached out of him. But he's surprised me, even with all the holding. Oli Udoh has surprised me. And Wayne asks, well, why don't they simplify it for Davis? Because if you simplify it for Davis, you're simplifying it for the defense as well, and you don't want to do that. Can end up in even worse results. So they're not willing to do that because it's all interlocked about how the entire offense works, and especially with guards and how they block. They're blocking assignments not only on pass defense, but on running and pulling and doing all the things they do. No, it's not a good idea to do that.
The folks on the chat are bringing up some blasts from the past of Ohio State linemen. Orlando Pace, Corey
Stringer was awesome. Dude, rest in peace, Corey. Big man.
Don't forget Kirk Loudermilk. Mm-hmm. Kirk Loudermilk, baby. Center. And I see Raymond's asking about Bynum, if he's going to get playing time with Smith coming back. And the answer to that, I believe, is no.
I hope so. I hope there's some sort of rotation, or they start playing the big nickel and they use him that way.
Yeah, that's the only thing where they have him do the J-Ron Curse role and play the big nickel, even though Curse was a real big nickel at 6'4", right. And Bynum's, Bynum would be a smaller big nickel. But of course Bynum was a cornerback. He was a cornerback, so he's got those coverage skills. But he really, what I understand is he really struggled as playing kind of a slot type of position. Like he was better on the outside. I don't know at the big nickel how much of an opportunity he would have to do that, but it certainly is with the way he's played the last 2 games, the plays he has made, it feels like he's earned some more time. Now, of course,
do we see a
small
dime
sample
package
size
where you got the 3 safeties, 3 corners, Eric Kendricks, and then the front 4?
It could be because the Packers often run 4 and 5 guys
wide
out.
Receivers.
Not
catch.
Just wide receivers, but just guys. Yeah. Like it'll be a running back. It'll be 4 wide receivers and a running back, or it'll be 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. But they're not along the line. They're out wide. They're in bunches, and you need some guys that can cover on that. With Barr being back and Kendricks being back, they're going to be taking some of that load, just like they have in the past. And with Peterson back, that means now we've got Peterson, Mac Alexander, Rashad Breeland, if he plays tomorrow, and Dantzler as your 4 top corners, in which case, where do you see Bynum sliding in there? I don't know. I don't think we're going to see him very much unless there's an injury to say, Xavier Woods or Hitman. It's a bit of a shame because we need to see someone like Bynum and need to see whether these 2 games was it a fluke, or is it something that he can continue to play at that level, because next year Xavier Woods likely isn't here. He's on a 1-year deal, and so you need a replacement for Xavier Woods, and I think
it would be good to see him on that side versus Smith's side.
And I believe that Bynum was actually the backup to Xavier Woods.
He was the backup.
Hitman got hurt.
Yeah.
So they've already got him kind of trained for that free safety side of things. And the early results have been encouraging for him just playing at all.
Joseph asked, where's Harrison Hand been? I think he's on IR.
No, he's back. He had been on the COVID list, and then he got back. But he's just been he's behind Chris Boyd on the depth chart, if you can believe that. And so, yeah, the opportunities have not been there for him to play other than on special teams when he's been able to play.
Yeah, and he is on the roster. He's on the.
Because when Breland went out a couple of games ago, Chris Boyd came in. Hand was dressed in that game, and he could have played, but they put Chris Boyd in opposite of Cameron Danzler on the outside against Ravens, and Boyd proceeded to give up. Was thrown at 12 times and gave up 8 completions, and the other 4 weren't completions only because the Ravens receivers either dropped them or Lamar Jackson overthrew them, but they were open. So Chris Boyd didn't have a very good game against the Ravens.
Now, we're at the end of the show. I gave my prediction on Wednesday. I picked the Vikings to win.
What was the prediction?
Huh?
So you what was your prediction? What was the score?
Where's my notebook? It was Vikings 31, Packers 24. The Vikings are underdogs by 1 point. That's steadily gone down all week. It started at 2.5, I believe. Now it's 1. The over-under is at 47. I picked the Vikings 31-24, which would give me the over, and also plus the they get the win. What are you thinking? Because I'm not going to pick the Packers. I can't stand them with, everything in my being. They irritate me. What are you picking?
Dave, in past years when the Vikings were playing in the old Humpty Dome, and I would have, this would have been a game that, even with the Packers having a better record than the Vikings and looking like the better team, I would have picked the Vikings to win this one because the Metrodome would be super loud. It just seemed like even though it was a crappy place to watch a game, from what I understand, it was an intimidating place for opponents to play. And
it was loud. It was like watching in your living room almost, except for it was loud and you're, tight in there, and it was fun because you were with the people. I mean, seats weren't that bad, but they weren't, and the views weren't that bad. I can't compare it to US Bank because I haven't seen a game there. So, but it wasn't a premier spot to watch a game. Put it that way.
Yeah, but the bank hasn't been a home field advantage for the Vikings the past 2 seasons. They're 2-2 there this season, and over the past last year and this year they're 5-7 overall at home. We talked about earlier about how they've been struggling on offense at home. I think that the Packers, the coaching staff is Matt LeFleur is proven to be, unfortunately, the right guy for the job there. They've got defensive coaches and staff, which includes Jerry Gray, the old Vikings defensive back coach that we let go for some reason. They've got their defensive coaches are really doing a great job with their defense. I just feel I don't trust this Vikings team even after what I saw last week. The Vikings seem to be on this kind of win 1, lose 1. Win 1, lose 2. Maybe win 2, then lose 2. They haven't gotten on a roll. They're too mistake prone. Their coaching staff does not prepare them properly, I think. And I don't see them winning this game, unfortunately. I think it's going to be 23-14 for the Vikings. The Vikings are going to struggle on offense because they're not going to get big plays. They're going to have to grind out a lot of drives, which they will not be able to do. And I don't think the offensive line, particularly the interior, is going to be able to protect Kirk Cousins enough so that he's comfortable enough to take those aggressive throws that we saw last week. He got pressured a lot last week too, more than I was expecting, but and he made some tough throws. But this is the kind of game where in the past Cousins has not come through. And I don't think the Vikings as a team, they've got to help him. I don't think the Vikings as a team are going to be able to come through, unfortunately. Lately, now, maybe the odds are in our favor, though, Dave, because we've lost the last two at home to the Packers. So maybe we're due for one, and we're due for maybe we can have another strong, solid performance like we did last week. But even last week, where we outgained the Chargers significantly, we had a 12-minute, almost 12-minute time of possession. It was one-score game. And we still did a lot of the things that show Zimmer ball is still alive and well. Giving up that score late in the first half, the 10 penalties for 118 yards.
Oh, God, that was... 2 minutes left in the first half. What's going to happen? The opposing team's going to score.
Yeah. Not just a field goal, like a touchdown.
They're going to go all.
And then we had the limp 2-minute first half drive by our own offense, which helps the other team more than it actually helped us. So those things just keep happening, and so it's really hard to have any confidence that the Vikings can do what they need to do against the Packers, which is to play another solid offensive game and come through with the win here. If it's close, though, we showed the special teams rankings earlier in the game, and there's a big advantage there for the Vikings in the return game and in the kicking game. Mason Crosby's really struggling this year.
As Joseph just
missed 7 kicks. Now 6 of them were in that Bengals game. No, it wasn't 6, but he missed 3. But he has been struggling, and so maybe that's the deciding factor. It comes down to a field goal. Like it often does with the Vikings, and either Joseph makes that field goal to win it, or Crosby misses that field goal to lose it.
Okay.
That's all I got for you.
Before we sign out, I want to congratulate Mary. She has been watching her grandson play in the tournament to make the Minnesota State Finals. His team went out. I saw as of like 3 quarters, they were up like 42-6 or something. They were cruising to a win. Mary, congratulations on that. Wish that from me to him when you talk to him today. And the rest of you, have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay sound, stay healthy. Make sure you drink your favorite beverage, because that always makes life more grand. And tomorrow, let's beat the Cheesers! Skol Vikings!
Skol Vikings, baby.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.